Hello everyone. So you can leave your messages here. What all are your queries? Please leave your messages here. And leave your messages here. Please write down in the comment section what all your queries. I welcome you all. In the today's session, what were your queries? Please leave your messages. Please leave your queries here. So I think I should start here. First of all, in the first question, it was there that in the inlet there was a diagram shown to you all, and it was asked what this red line is. What this red line is, and this red line was going from the mid part of the symphysis pubis to the sacral promontory tip part. Okay, so this was the first question, that this line was going from the mid part of the sacral promontory to the from the mid part of the symphysis pubis to the sacral promontory tip. So, dear students, this is obstetric conjugate. Dear students, this is obstetric conjugate, and the lower line, which is this blue line, this is diagonal conjugate, and this upper line is the anatomical conjugate. Okay, these conjugates are nothing but the antero-posterior diameters. Okay, this is the enlarged image. These are nothing but the antero-posterior diameters. Okay, these are the antero-posterior diameters. So we can measure clinically this diagonal conjugate, as it has been shown in your other diagrams. We can measure this diagonal conjugate clinically. It was shown in the last questions. Okay, we do the fingers, we measure it like this, right? We measure the fingers like this, and this distance we should know our hand is measuring how much, right? And the upper one is the anatomical or the true conjugate. Okay, going to the next question. Obstetric conjugate is computed by subtracting 1.5 centimeter from, the answer is diagonal conjugate. Okay, so diagonal conjugate we measure clinically, and then if we do minus 1 centimeter, it is true conjugate. And from the diagonal conjugate, if we are minusing 1.5, if we are subtracting 1.5, then it is the obstetric conjugate. We should know the obstetric conjugate to know the pelvic diameters. Okay, so here we go to the next question. Which of the following can be assessed clinically for inlet? As I already told you, diagonal conjugate can be assessed clinically for the inlet. Okay, shortest diameter of the pelvic inlet is, you should know that the pubic symphysis, this pubic symphysis is not as simple as shown. Okay, this pubic symphysis, posteriorly it is enlarged in the middle part. Okay, it is enlarged in the middle part. So the diameter, the antero-posterior diameter, this behind is the sacral promontory tip, the tip of the sacral promontory. So of course this is like this, it is elevated in the mid. So this diameter, the middle one diameter, the obstetric conjugate diameter, is the shortest diameter. Okay, that is why it is of the clinical relevance. Okay, that is why it is of the clinical relevance. Okay, obstetric relevance is most of this because this is shortest diameter. Next question is critical obstetric conjugate for trial of labor is. Okay, now this diagonal conjugate, this lower one which we measured clinically, this is almost of 12 centimeter, right? And I told you from the diagonal conjugate, if we minus 1 centimeter, it is true conjugate or the anatomical conjugate. So true conjugate, diagonal conjugate is approximately 12, minus 1, it becomes 11. And if from the diagonal conjugate, if we minus 1.5, then it becomes the obstetric conjugate. So it is almost 10.5. Our question was for the trial of the labor, after which we will say that yes, this diameter is more than this diameter is inadequate for the delivery to occur, for the normal delivery to occur. The fetus cannot pass through this. So the answer is 9.5 centimeter. Next question is shortest diameter of the pelvic outlet. Here the trick was there that they have asked you about the pelvic outlet. They have not asked you about the pelvis. They have asked you about the pelvic outlet. Okay. So here you have to see the outlet diameter. So out of the outlet diameter, the transverse diameter is the shortest diameter, dear friends. Okay, students, the next question is important plane of the obstetric significances. The pelvis is a cavity, is basically a cavity. So it has its inlet, it has its outlet, and in between this cavity, this pelvis is divided into shapes. I have the diagram here, you can see here. This is the pelvis. This upper part is the false pelvis. Okay, in between this inlet and outlet, this is the true pelvis. This one, the one which I am shading, is the true pelvis. And now this pelvis is divided into the different subcavities by planes. This plane is a plane of the greatest dimension. And the second plane is the plane of the least dimension, because these protuberance are nothing but, these elevations are nothing but ischial spine. That makes the dimension of this plane the least. Okay, this make the dimension of this plane the least, and all the narrow, the obstructed areas, the narrow areas, they are of the obstetric obstetric value, because the fetus has to pass through this plane. So it is very important obstetrically that delivery will occur or not. Plane of least pelvic dimension is very important clinically. Okay, in the importance of the plane of the clinical significance is least pelvic dimensions, because least pelvic dimension decide whether normal delivery will occur or not. Importance of the plane of the least pelvic dimensions are, these are some of the few importance. The answer is all of the above. It corresponds to the level of ischial spine. Now only I showed you the plane is of very narrow, because of the ischial spine which are coming in the cavity, right? Because of the ischial spine, so it corresponds to the level of ischial spine. This is correct. Pudendal nerve block is given at this plane. Yes, we recognize the nerve of pudendal nerve by recognizing the ischial spine, and by recognizing the ischial spine, we give the pudendal block. External os is located at this level. This is also true. There are some other relevance, that internal rotation भी यहीं पे होती है. Internal rotation also occurs at this level, because this ये यहाँ पर levator ni होती है. ठीक है. Levator ani is also at this level, so internal rotation also occurs here. Interspinous diameter is the interspinous diameter, the diameter between these two iliac spine. This diameter is known as the interspinous diameter. This is 10 centimeter. Okay, this is 10 centimeter. Identify the plane colored red. So this green colored plane was asked in NEET PG 21. ठीक है, NEET PG 22 में the plane of the least this green colored plane was asked. And as you know that we have divided this whole pelvic cavity into the, we have very good Dr. Kalpana, very good. Yeah, it's B, mid pelvis. Okay, so we have divided this whole pelvic cavity into 4 planes. This one plane is the inlet plane, this is the outlet plane, and in between there are 2 more planes, the plane of the greatest dimension and the plane of the least pelvic dimension. Say here is the outlet plane. The cavity between this greater dimension plane and the lowest pelvic dimension plane, between this cavity which I am shading here, this cavity is known as mid pelvis. Mid pelvis. Okay, anteriorly it is between the mid part of the pubic symphysis and the lower border of the pubic symphysis, and posteriorly it is S2 to S5. Okay, this was what it was asked in NEET PG. Okay, NEET PG, this was asked, this green colored was asked, and the answer to this green colored part was mid pelvis. Okay, and today in the question I have asked you obstetric this red color, this one I asked you. So what is this red color? This is obstetric outlet. What is obstetric outlet? The cavity which is between the plane of least pelvic dimension and the plane of the outlet. That is obstetric outlet. Okay, so this is obstetric outlet. So what is inlet and what is anatomical outlet? So something was missing. It was anatomical outlet. What are they? This plane of outlet, this plane, the plane of outlet, the lower edges of the pelvis, this is anatomical outlet. Okay, and the cavity which I have shaded with black lines, this is obstetric outlet. The whole cavity is obstetric outlet. Okay, and this is the mid pelvis which I have shaded red. I hope you understand. Let's go to the next question. Which of the following features is used to define contracted pelvis? So obstetric conjugate, it should be less than 10 centimeter. So as I already told you, obstetric conjugate is the least of the shortest diameter among all the anterior-posterior diameters. It is the shortest diameters. So obstetric conjugate is something that is of very clinical relevance, and if it is less than 9.5 centimeter, then the pelvis is known as the contracted pelvis. Okay, and interspinous diameter, if it is less than 8 centimeter, then the pelvis is the contracted pelvis. Platyploid pelvis and gynecoid pelvis are not the contracted pelvis. The pelvis which are contracted pelvis are Naegeli's pelvis and Robert pelvis. Got it, students? Okay, very good, Dr. Kalpana, very good. CPD is best assessed by. The best method to assess the CPD among all this is pelvic assessment. Okay, is the pelvic assessment. You are going to write down in the comment box here that which is not among these options, which is ideally the best method. Okay, I will be giving you answer tomorrow. Type of the pelvis associated with deep transverse arrest. This was a question which was repeated. Deep transverse arrest. Now what happens in deep transverse arrest? For example, if this is a cross section of the pelvic cavity, then the sagittal diameter come to lies here. Okay, this is occiput, and occiput of the fetus head, and this is the outer one is the pelvic cavity. Now, when in which pelvis the deep transverse arrest occur? You all know that gynecoid pelvis is almost round in shape. The android pelvis is heart shaped. So what happens in this android pelvis is that the fetus head is occiput posterior. One of our question for today was already key, in which pelvis the occiput posterior position occurs. So in android pelvis was the answer, and in the android pelvis mostly the occiput is posteriorly. This arrow indicates the occiput. Okay, and now because this pelvis is heart shaped, it is narrow in front and it is broad in behind. Okay, so now this head, when it goes under internal rotation, it comes at this position. It comes at this position and then it gets obstructed. Now, and then here it gets arrest. Okay, so the answer becomes deep transverse arrest, because no pelvis other than this android pelvis is broad at the behind and narrow in the front. It is only the heart shaped pelvis which is narrow in the front and broad behind. So here this is the question which was from the FMG January 23. Here you have to tell what is the pelvis type. Okay, because we know that gynecoid pelvis is the pelvis which is almost round in shape, or you can say that it is little transverse oval. Okay, not the total transverse oval, little transverse oval. The transverse diameter is slightly higher than the antero-posterior diameter. So if you see here, this antero-posterior diameter and the transverse diameter, okay, the transverse diameter is just slightly higher. If I draw the shape of anthropoid pelvis, it is longitudinal oval. Okay, the antero-posterior diameter is much higher than the transverse diameter. Let me draw for you. Okay, and in the android pelvis, it is basically heart shaped and it is very easy to recognize. In the platyploid pelvis, it is again a transverse oval, but the transverse diameter is much higher. Okay, students, they got confused between the gynecoid pelvis and the platyploid pelvis in exam, because most of us had read that gynecoid pelvis is a round pelvis. Beta, it is a round. Okay, let's go to the next question. Type of the pelvis with phase to pubis delivery. Now, what is phase to pubis delivery? That usually the occiput comes in front and this phase part is towards the maternal back or towards the maternal sacrum. But if the phase is coming first and this occiput part is toward the maternal sacrum, it is the phase to pubis delivery. Okay, the hairy part is not coming first during the fetal delivery. Okay, so it is in the anthropoid pelvis, because that you will see that in the anthropoid pelvis, direct occipito-posterior position, persistent occipito-posterior position occurs quite frequently. Okay, so what are all the problems जो related है anthropoid pelvis से? वो problems हैं बच्चे. एंथ्रोपॉड पेल्विस का आंसर किस किस सिचुएशन में आएगा? ठीक है, डॉक्टर प्रशांत, द आंसर वाज डी. लेट मी चेक. It's wrong. Then the answer for the phase to pubis Let me check, Dr. Prashant. Dr. Prashant, I have checked it. The answer is A. Dr. Prashant, I have checked. The answer is A. Please do, you should also check it once again. Answer is A. Okay. So let's start it. What is the problem with anthropoid pelvis? That this pelvis is longitudinal oval. Okay, longitudinal oval, and and this longitudinal oval shape is responsible for occiput posterior and persistent occiput posterior. Okay, this shape it keeps the occiput posterior, and these lateral walls, these are very narrow, and these lateral walls, these are very narrow, and they don't let the fetus to rotate and come anteriorly, so occiput keeps posteriorly, keep on, occiput पीछे ही रह जाती है. ठीक है, ऑक्सीपुट जो है वो पीछे ही रह जाती है. सो डायरेक्ट ऑक्सीपिटो पोस्टीरियर, प्रोसिस्टेंट ऑक्सीपिटो पोस्टीरियर एंड फेज टू प्यूबिस डिलीवरी, इन सब का आंसर जो है एंथ्रोपॉइड पेल्विस होगा. इस टॉपिक में सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट टाइप्स ऑफ पेल्विस है. सो यू ऑल ऑफ यू आर गोइंग टू स्ट्रेस अ लॉट ऑन टाइप्स ऑफ पेल्विस. Okay. So anthropoid pelvis is the pelvis which is associated with direct occipito-posterior, persistent occipito-posterior, and phase 2 pubis delivery. Got it? Okay. Our 3 questions are solved. The smallest diameter of the true pelvis. Now here they are asking about the true pelvis, the pelvis as a whole. You know that the plane of least pelvic dimension was the ischial spine. So the least diameter is the interspinous diameter. ठीक है बच्चे? A lady during the labor presented with occipito-posterior position. Manual rotation was tried, but it was unsuccessful. What is the pelvis type? बच्चे ये कह रहा है manual rotation नहीं हुई. So what is this question is asking? This question is asking persistent ऑक्सीपिटो पोस्टीरियर. जो चीज मैनुअली रोटेट करने पे भी ना हो, तो इट मीन्स द क्वेश्चन इज प्रेसिस्टेंट ऑक्सीपिटो posterior, right? You got my point? So we have studied that persistent occipito posterior is anthropoid pelvis. Okay, anthropoid pelvis. Anthropoid pelvis is the longitudinal long pelvis, and yeah, you can say, see, anthropoid is made up of main 2 words, A and P, antero-posterior long pelvis. Okay, so a lot of question on anthropoid pelvis. Let's go ahead. Antero-posterior diameter is maximum in platyploid pelvis, the transverse diameter is maximum. In the gynecoid pelvis, slightly more, but transverse diameter is more. The android pelvis is heart-shaped, and this is only the anthropoid pelvis which is longitudinally oval and has the antero-posterior diameter more. AP, anthropoid short form is AP. So AP long or longitudinal oval is anthropoid pelvis. Pelvis associated with direct occipito-posterior. I already told you occipito-posterior के आगे प्रीफिक्स कोई भी आ जाए, persistent occipito-posterior और direct occipito-posterior. Your answer will be your answer will be anthropoid pelvis. Okay, persistent, very good, Dr. Prashant. The pelvis associated with direct occipito-posterior is, what do you mean by direct occipito-posterior? Persistent मैंने आप सबको बता दिया है कि persistent का मतलब होता है जो ऑक्सीपिटो पोस्टीरियर जहां है वहीं रहे, जिसकी रोटेशन करना पॉसिबल ना हो. डायरेक्ट ऑक्सीपिटो पोस्टीरियर का मतलब है अगर ये मेटर्नल पेल्विस है, यहाँ पे सेक्रम है, तो जस्ट सेक्रम के ऑपोजिट अगर ऑक्सीपुट है, okay, that is known as direct occipito-posterior, because the anthropoid pelvis is longitudinally oval. That is why the direct occipito-posterior is also common in the anthropoid pelvis. Very good, Dr. Prashant. Keep on interacting in the chat box, it will help you a lot. Which is the most common type of pelvis? Gynecoid pelvis. Another name is female pelvis. Android pelvis. Another name is male pelvis. Okay. Next is most common cause of occipito-posterior position. I told you occipito-posterior के आगे prefix अगर कुछ आता है तो you are going to write the answer anthropoid pelvis. अगर सिर्फ occipito-posterior आता है तो you will be writing the answer as android pelvis. So what are the questions of android pelvis? Android pelvis is responsible for the occipito-posterior position, and android pelvis, very good Dr. Praveen, very good Dr. Prashant. Android pelvis is responsible for deep transverse arrest. क्योंकि deep transverse arrest क्यों होती है? Because the front pelvis is narrow. Android pelvis is basically heart-shaped pelvis. Okay. So front pelvis is narrow and the behind pelvis is broad. So थोड़ी सी रोटेशन हो जाती है लेकिन ज़्यादा रोटेशन नहीं होती, वो आगे नहीं आ पाता, तो ट्रांसवर्सली स्टक रह जाता है हेड. अब एंड्रॉयड पेल्विस, व्हाई इट इज द मोस्ट कॉमन कॉज ऑफ ऑक्सीपिटो-पोस्टीरियर, ध्यान से देखेंगे. एंड्रॉयड पेल्विस इज ब्रॉड पोस्टीरियरली, ओके, and the fetus skull का occiput is also broad posteriorly. ठीक है, ओके. fetus skull का broad part कौन सा होता है? fetus skull का broad part, just a minute, live class tuition. Fetus skull is also broad posteriorly, okay, and the android pelvis is also broad posteriorly. So broad part will go into the broad fetus part will go into the broad pelvis part. That is why android pelvis is the most common cause, okay. And one thing more, that this here I would like to tell you that occipito-posterior position is the only position which is most common in malposition or malpresentation, which is most common in primary. Otherwise all malpresentations are common in multis, okay. Most common type of pelvis associated with persistent occipito-posterior. Should I explain it? Anthropoid pelvis. Next is most common type of pelvis associated with the face presentation is the platyploid pelvis. The another name of the platyploid pelvis is flat pelvis, okay. The another name is flat pelvis. In cephalic presentation with well flexed head, the presenting diameter is, now when the head is well flexed, it means that the neck is totally down, okay. So when the neck is down, the pelvis will be faced by this. Yeah, okay, Dr. Prashant, just listen to the explanation. See, when the head is flexed, Okay, for example, just see here this is pelvis. Okay, this is pelvis. Now if you it is visible to you, let me see in the camera. Okay, so when the head is well flexed, what part will be coming down? You can make you can flex your head. Is it visible to all? Yeah, I think now it is visible. You can easily, if you get confused, if you forget everything, you just flex your head and make a pelvis all around and see which diameter is this when you flex. So you will understand that this is suboccipitopragmatic area. So you have to just do a little exercise if you get forgot. Just flex your head and just see what is coming on this lower circle. That is the engaging diameter. So the answer is suboccipito. I think Dr. Rohit, is it clear to you? It is not C, it is suboccipitopragmatic, B option, and the diameter, very well said by Dr. Praveen Pawar, it is 9.5 centimeter. Okay. On pervaginal examination, interior fontanelle and supraorbital ridges are felt in the second stage of the labor. So now let us draw the fetal skull. If this is the fetal skull, then the part which is below the eyes, this part is face. We are dividing the fetal skull into three parts. The part which is below the nose, the part which contains nose, face, chin, this is the face part. Okay, and here is almost an anterior fontanelle and here is posterior fontanelle. The part, this part, from the base of the nose till anterior fontanelle. What is this part? Please write down in the comment section. Please write down. This part is the brow. Okay, the part which contains nose and lips is the face. The part which contains forehead and some of the scalp is the brow, and the part between the anterior fontanelle and posterior fontanelle is vertex. So if on the PV any examiner is feeling, very good Dr. Prashant, the supraorbital ridges and interior fontanelle, it will be brow. Okay, don't mark it face. In the face presentation, very good Dr. Praveen. In the face presentation, we will feel nose and lips. Okay, very good Dr. Rohit. And in the brow presentation, we will be feeling forehead, supraorbital ridges and interior fontanelle. In the vertex, we will be feeling anterior fontanelle and posterior fontanelle. Largest fetal diameter is mentovertical. You can see it's a long diameter from the mentis to the vertical. Vertical is top part of the skull. It's a very long diameter. Okay, mentovertical. Engagement is said to have occurred when biparietal diameter of the fetal head is through the pelvic inlet. Okay, biparietal diameter of the fetal head is through the pelvic inlet. Why does it mean? Now you see that here we are talking about the engagement of the cephalic. Good evening Kavita, good evening Rohit. A cephalic presentation. Here we are talking about the cephalic presentation only. In cephalic presentation, and what is there? There are three presenting part. Okay, when head is downward in the pelvis, three presenting parts can be there: face, brow and vertex. Isn't it? Three parts can be there: face, brow and vertex. Three parts can be there. Okay, so now here when three parts can be there, then we have to define the engagement. So engagement is when the biparietal diameter, the transverse diameter. We are not talking about the anterior-posterior diameter. The anterior-posterior diameter will be different in face, will be different in brow, will be different in vertex. Okay, will be different in vertex. But the transverse diameter will be same in all. Okay, so in the cephalic presentation, engagement is when the biparietal diameter, the largest transverse diameter. Rohit Kumar, beta, please mark it correct. It is the largest transverse diameter. And why we haven't taken the anterior-posterior diameter of the fetal skull? Because the anterior-posterior diameter is different in face, different in brow, and different in vertex. Dr. Prashant, what it is in the vertex? What is the anterior-posterior diameter in the vertex presentation? It is suboccipito-bregmatic, right? And what is it in the brow? In the brow, it is suboccipito-frontal. And in the face, the anterior-posterior diameter is submento-bregmatic. Okay, so you just need to learn that the definition of engagement is with respect to the transverse diameter of the fetal head and not to the anterior-posterior diameter. Okay, head of the fetus is engaged. Now you know the definition of the engagement is when the biparietal diameter goes into the pelvic inlet. At that time, what is the per abdomen finding? The per abdomen finding is 2/5 palpable. 2/5 palpable. If we will do the PV, if we divide the fetus head into 5 parts, okay, only these 2 parts will be felt on per abdomen. For example, if this is the lady abdomen, then on PA only this much will be felt and rest all will be below the pubic symphysis. Okay? Okay? Anterior-posterior diameter of engagement is least in. It is least in complete flexion, because in complete flexion the presentation is vertex and the diameter in vertex, anterior-posterior diameter, is suboccipito-bregmatic. Already we did it. Okay. Condition associated with single ala. So the false pelvis part of the pelvis contains 2 alas, and you know that it is Naegeli's pelvis. Those who want the trick is that, see, in the last of the single there is Naegeli is written. Okay, in the last of the single Naegeli is written. So that's it. Okay, so single के लास्ट में 4 वर्ड्स नेगली लिखे हुए हैं. Okay, so it is Naegeli's pelvis. Very good. Most common presenting part is beta. It is always vertex. Okay. Okay, the characteristic of caput succedanum is all of the following except beta. The caput succedanum is the swelling of the soft tissues of the scalp. जब स्कैल्प, फीटस का स्कैल्प इतना ज़्यादा उसमें एक ही जगह पे अटका रहता है, तो जो है वहाँ पे स्वेलिंग हो जाती है सॉफ्ट टिश्यू की. जब वो पेल्विस से क्रॉस कर रहा होता है फीटस का हेड और एक ही जगह पे काफ़ी देर स्टक रहता है, तो वहाँ पे जो है उसकी स्वेलिंग हो जाती है सॉफ्ट टिश्यू की. So because it is a swelling of the soft tissues, very good Dr. Prashant, very good Dr. Kavita, very good Dr. Rohit. So क्योंकि soft tissues की swelling है, तो it will not be limited by the bones. Okay, it will not be limited by the bones, right? And it will not be limited in midline because scalp is uniformly spread. and it will be not dangerous, and it will disappear within 2 to 3 days. So this is wrong. It does not disappear, nahi, it will disappear within 2 to 3 days. Which is the swelling of the fetal head which does not cross the midline, which does not cross the suture line? What is that swelling? Do write in the comment section. In this NEET PG, we have got a question on caput succedaneum, but the question was not exactly recalled, only we know the topic. So we should read this topic in detail. Okay? So you have to tell me which swelling of the fetus head does not cross the midline and does not cross the suture line. Which swelling? Okay? Caput succedaneum, Dr. Praveen, it disappears in 2 to 3 days. कैपेट सक्सीडानम क्योंकि सॉफ्ट टिश्यू की स्वेलिंग है, ये डिसअपियर होगा 2 to 3 डेज में. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये डिसअपियर नहीं होगा, ये डिसअपियर होगा. ओके, डिसअपियर होगा 2 to 3 डेज में. ऐसी कौन सी स्वेलिंग है जो सिर्फ एक ही बोन पे लिमिटेड रहती है और वो सूचर लाइन को क्रॉस नहीं करती? क्वेश्चन पूछा है मैंने, आप उसका आंसर दोगे कमेंट बॉक्स में. When the fetus is in attitude of complete flexion, the presenting part is bit a vertex. Okay? What is the position of the fetus in the image shown? ये जो triangular, yes, Dr. Kavita, it is cephalohematoma. It is cephalohematoma, जो swelling नहीं cross करती, that is cephalohematoma. Okay? चलिए नेक्स्ट है, व्हाट इज द पोजीशन ऑफ द फीटस इन द इमेज शोन हेयर. दो जो ट्रायंगुलर फोंटानले है ना बेटा, वो ऑक्सीपुट फोंटानले है, और जो क्वाड्रेंगुलर फोंटानले है वो जो है वो एंटीरियर फोंटानले होता है. ठीक है. अब ट्रायंगुलर फोंटानले पीछे वाला फोंटानले, ट्रायंगुलर फोंटानले पोस्टीरियर क्यों होता है? कोई बता सकता है मुझे? देखो, ये दो लाइंस हैं पेराइटल बोन की, ठीक है, और ये पीछे वाली बोन है ऑक्सीपुट. ओके, तो अब ऑक्सीपुट तो एक ही होती है ना, तो इसलिए ये ट्रायंगुलर होता है. एंटीरियर फोंटानले क्वाड्रेंगुलर क्यों होता है? क्योंकि ये दो बोन्स हैं पेराइटल बोन्स, और ये वाली दो बोन्स हैं फ्रंटल बोन. ओके, फ्रंटल बोन, ये दो बोन्स हैं पेराइटल बोन. ठीक है. बिकॉज इंटीरियर फोंटानले इज एट द जंक्शन ऑफ 4 bones, 2 parietal and 2 frontal, it is quadrangular. Whereas posterior fontanelle is at the junction of 3 bones, 2 parietal and 1 occiput, so it is quadrangular in shape. अब ये तो हमें पता चल गया कि ऑक्सीपुट इज इंटीरियर. ठीक है, दिस इज ट्रायंगुलर फोंटानले इज ऑक्सीपुट. बट इसको क्या बोलेंगे? देखो, जब भी हम किसी पेशेंट का पीवी करते हैं, पेल्विस असेस करते हैं, तो वो पेशेंट बिल्कुल हमें फेस टू फेस लेटता है. ठीक है, तो हमारा राइट जो है उसका लेफ्ट होता है, हमारा राइट उसका लेफ्ट होता है, बिकॉज वो हमारी तरफ ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में होता है पेशेंट. हम पेशेंट को फेस टू फेस देख रहे होते हैं. जब उसे चेक करते हैं लिथोटमी पोजीशन में, तो उसका जो है राइट हमारा लेफ्ट होता है और हमारा लेफ्ट उसका राइट होता है. सो दैट इज वाई दिस इज इन द लेफ्ट डायरेक्शन, बट वी हैव टू नो दैट दिस इज द पेशेंट्स राइट. सो राइट ऑक्सीपिटो इंटीरियर. Most common occipito anterior position is left occipito anterior. Here I would like to tell you, write down in the comments box, most common position of fetus head. Most common position of fetus head कौन सी होती है? कौन बताएगा? ऑक्सीपुट इंटीरियर, लेफ्ट ऑक्सीपुट इंटीरियर है. मोस्ट कॉमन पोजीशन ऑफ फीटस हेड कौन सी है? कम ऑन एवरीवन, दिस आर वेरी इजी क्वेश्चन. It is left occiput transverse. It is not left occiput anterior. Left occiput interior is the most common occiput interior position. Okay? Okay, Dr. Kavita, Dr. Prashant, please make your concept clear. It is left occipital transverse. Okay, lot. Not occipito posterior is a malposition. Occipito, Dr. Praveen, vertex is presenting part. Vertex is presenting part. Rohit Kumar, left occipito anterior is the most common occipito anterior position. Left occipito transverse is, please, you all are getting wrong here. Please make your concept clear. Left occipito transverse is the most common fetal position. Presenting part in left occipito anterior. First, I should take this question. Denominator refer to. Let us see what we are telling. I will show you, Dr. Kavita. Let us see. What is this part of the, I will show you the part of the presenting part, which is, what is A? Denominator. Don't see the question, just tell me what is option A known as. There are some terms, you should know the exact definition because questions are asked lot of times on definition. What is presentation? Presentation क्या होता है? Presentation means fetus का कौन सा part यूट्रस के लोअर सेगमेंट में है, ठीक है? So this is presentation, part of the fetus lying in the lower segment. It is not fetus, it is not fetus, it is uterus here. It is not fetus, it is uterus here. Okay, so part of the fetus in the lower segment. कौन सा part बच्चे का lower segment में है? Presentation कौन कौन सी होती हैं? It is cephalic, it is breech. अगर head नीचे है तो उसको हम cephalic presentation बोलते हैं. अगर breech नीचे है, pelvis नीचे है तो उसको हम breech बोलते हैं. अगर shoulder लोअर सेगमेंट में है तो हम उसको शोल्डर बोलते हैं प्रेजेंटेशन, ठीक है? तो अब ये सेकंड पार्ट क्या है? पार्ट ऑफ द प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट, प्रेजेंटेशन विच लाइज ओवर द इंटरनल ऑस. अब देखो, लोअर सेगमेंट ऑफ यूट्रस में जो पार्ट था, यहां पे जो बच्चे का पार्ट था उसको हमने बोल दिया प्रेजेंटेशन. लेकिन इस हेड का, अगर हेड है, अगर इस हेड का कौन सा पार्ट इंटरनल ऑस पे है? इंटरनल ऑस मतलब सबसे नीचे, यहाँ पे सबसे नीचे कौन सा पार्ट है? ठीक है, यस, मोस्ट कॉमन माल प्रेजेंटेशन इज ब्रीच. वेरी गुड, ठीक है. तो सबसे नीचे कौन सा पार्ट है? तो हेड के अभी हमने पढ़ा 3 पार्ट होते हैं. सिफेलिक प्रेजेंटेशन के 3 पार्ट होते हैं, वर्टेक्स, ब्राउ और फेस. तो हेड के इन 3 पार्ट्स में से सबसे नीचे कौन सा पार्ट है? उसको बोलते हैं प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट. इसको बोलते हैं प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट, इसको बोलते हैं प्रेजेंटेशन, ठीक है? अब मान लीजिए कि वर्टेक्स था, ठीक है, वर्टेक्स था. हेड के 3 पार्ट है, वर्टेक्स, ब्राउ और फेस. अब अगर वर्टेक्स प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट था, यहां नीचे वर्टेक्स आ रहा था, एंटीरियर पोस्टीरियर फोंटानेले के ये पार्ट आ रहे थे. तो अब आपने मुझे बताना है कि वर्टेक्स वो जो है वो कहीं भी हो सकता है, ठीक है? जो पोस्टीरियर फोंटानेले है वो पेल्विस में कहाँ पे है? वो इंटीरियरली है, पोस्टीरियरली है. तो इस बात को हम कैसे बोलते हैं? ठीक है, इंटीरियर पोस्टीरियर fontanelle वर्टेक्स का मतलब क्या है? इंटीरियर पोस्टेनले एंड पोस्टीरियर fontanelle आर इन द इंटरनल पेल्विस, इंटरनल ऑस, आर लाइंग ऑन द इंटरनल ऑस. अब इंटीरियर fontanelle या पोस्टीरियर fontanelle कहाँ है पेल्विस में? लेफ्ट में है, राइट में है, तो हम ये कैसे बोलेंगे? ठीक है, तो हम ये बोलेंगे विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू ऑक्सीपुट, with respect to occiput, because occiput is the denominator. What do you understand by denominator? Denominator is bony fixed point on the presenting part. presenting part पे हमने एक bony fixed point कर दिया है जिसके हिसाब से हम सारी बातें करेंगे. ठीक है, जिसके हिसाब से इसको बोलते हैं डिनोमिनेटर. सो द आंसर टू द क्वेश्चन डिनोमिनेटर रेफर्स टू इज bony fixed point of the presenting part. अब ये हमने देख लिया कि वर्टेक्स पे हमने ऑक्सीपुट को फिक्स कर लिया. अब ये ऑक्सीपुट कहाँ है? लेफ्ट में है, राइट में है, या ट्रांसवर्स है, या ऑब्लिक लेफ्ट ऑक्सीपुट है, कहाँ है? तो वो जो हम पोजीशन बताएंगे उसको हम बोलते हैं पोजीशन. वो ऑक्सीपुट कहाँ पे है? मैटरनल पेल्विस में. ठीक है, रिलेशन ऑफ डिफरेंट पार्ट ऑफ द फीटस टू वन अनदर इज पोजीशन. ऑक्सीपुट कहाँ है? पेल्विस में. ठीक है, रिलेशन ऑफ द डिफरेंट पार्ट ऑफ द फीटस टू वन अनदर इज एटीट्यूड, और फीटस का रिलेशन विद पेल्विस इज पोजीशन. ओके, विद पेल्विस इज पोजीशन. आई होप यू क्लियर दिस टर्म. ओके, वंस अगेन आई वुड लाइक टू टेल यू कि प्रेजेंटेशन का मतलब है कि लोअर पार्ट ऑफ द यूट्रस में क्या आ रहा है. प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट का मतलब है कि उस लोअर पार्ट का कौन सा पार्ट इंटरनल ऑस पे है. ठीक है, डिनोमिनेटर होता है उस प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट को बताने के लिए हमने कौन सा पॉइंट फिक्स किया है. ठीक है, एंड पोजीशन होता है वो डिनोमिनेटर कहाँ पे है पेल्विस में. अगर प्रेजेंटेशन सिफेलिक है तो प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट अगर वर्टेक्स है तो डिनोमिनेटर ऑक्सीपुट होता है. अब ऑक्सीपुट कहाँ है? पेल्विस में. इसीलिए हम बोलते हैं ना लेफ्ट ऑक्सीपुट ट्रांसवर्स. लेफ्ट ऑक्सीपुट ट्रांसवर्स का मतलब है, डॉक्टर कविता यू विल सी हियर, ये हम अगर ये हमारा फीटस हेड है और ये हमारा ऑक्सीपुट है, इफ दिस इज ऑक्सीपुट, okay, so it means that it is in the लेफ्ट ऑपोजिट होता है, तो इसको इधर बनाना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, लेफ्ट ऑक्सीपुट, दैट दिस ऑक्सीपुट इज ट्रांसवर्स इन डायरेक्शन एंड टुवर्ड द लेफ्ट साइड. ओके, एंड टुवर्ड द लेफ्ट साइड. ओके, now let us study cesarean section is mandatory in the following presentation. ब्राउ के अंदर जो एंगेजिंग डायमीटर होता है वो मैक्सिमम होता है. इट इज मेंटो वर्टिकल और इट इज सब ऑक्सीपिटो फ्रंटल. तो क्योंकि ये इतना ज्यादा होता है तो इसलिए जो है सिजेरियन सेक्शन करना पड़ता है. इट इज ऑलमोस्ट 11.5 सेंटीमीटर and mentovertical is 14 centimeter. So either of them, one diameter is there, suboccipitofrontal or mentovertical, and both the diameters are much larger, that engagement does not occur. Presenting part of the fetus indicates the relationship of presentation, को इसको थोड़ा सा इन्होंने presenting बोल दिया है, lower pole of the fetus to the maternal pelvis. ठीक है, कि फीटस का लोअर पोल यूट्रस में कहाँ है, That is known as presentation. Already we have discussed it. In transverse lie the presentation is, transverse lie में बच्चा ऐसे ट्रांसवर्स पड़ा होता है, ठीक है. सो या तो शोल्डर प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट होता है या बैक. सो क्योंकि यहाँ बैक नहीं दिया हुआ है, सो वी विल मार्क शोल्डर. लाई क्या है? व्हाट इज लाई? लाई इज बेसिकली कि मेटरनल मदर की लॉन्गिट्यूडनल एक्सिस और बच्चे की लॉन्गिट्यूडनल एक्सिस में रिलेशन. अब मदर की लॉन्गिट्यूडनल एक्सिस और बच्चे की, यहाँ बच्चे की लॉन्गिट्यूडनल एक्सिस ट्रांसवर्स है, तो आंसर इज ट्रांसवर्स. हैंड इज द प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट. बैक और शोल्डर, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर द प्रेजेंटिंग पार्ट. They have not asked you the presenting part, they have asked you the lie. Okay, lie is the longitudinal axis. So I think you will not forget. What is +1 station? Here in this question, the ischial spine, they are taken as 0 station. And the more, the plus means they are down and minus means they are above. So the +1 means 1 centimeter below the ischial spine. Okay, 1 centimeter below the ischial spine. There is no mechanism of labor for all of these except shoulder presentation में, क्योंकि ट्रांसवर्स लाई है तो इसके लिए हमें सिजेरियन ही करना पड़ता है. डॉक्टर कविता, आंसर इज बी. Okay, let's see how. Brow presentation में I already told you diameter of engagement is suboccipitofrontal or mentovertical. Again we have to do cesarean. So yes, there is no mechanism of labor, but these two are the positions. Face presentation में, the face presentation में mentum, the chin is the presenting part. सो मेंटम एंटीरियर होगी तो उस पोजीशन को मेंटो एंटीरियर बोलेंगे. मेंटम पोस्टीरियर होगी तो उसको हम मेंटो पोस्टीरियर बोलेंगे, राइट. सो फेस प्रेजेंटेशन में ये अगर मेंटम इंटीरियर है तो नॉर्मल डिलीवरी हो सकती है. अगर मेंटम पोस्टीरियर है तो यहाँ पे सिजेरियन होगा. सो द आंसर इज बी. ओके, आई होप यू गॉट इट. बिकॉज अगर मेंटम पोस्टीरियर होती है तो डायमीटर ऑफ एंगेजमेंट जो हो जाता है वो मेंटो स्टर्नम होता है, ठीक है. हाउ यू विल रिमेंबर दिस निमोनिक? द निमोनिक इज MAN. मेंटो इंटीरियर में नॉर्मल विजाइनल डिलीवरी होती है, मैन. ओके, गॉट इट डॉक्टर कविता? मैन. मेंटो इंटीरियर और जो पोजीशन है फेस की उसमें नॉर्मल वेजाइनल डिलीवरी होती है. ये हम ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. दिस इज अ रिपीट क्वेश्चन. विच डायमीटर इज बीइंग असेस्ड बाय द एग्जामिनर? हियर वी आर असेसिंग द डायगोनल कॉन्जुगेट. ओके, हियर वी आर असेसिंग द डायगोनल कॉन्जुगेट एंड हियर वी आर असेसिंग द ट्रांसवर्स डायमीटर ऑफ द आउटलेट. ओके, आई थिंक आप सबका ठीक होगा. Which of the following statement about the engagement of fetal head is false? I already explained you in lot that engagement of the fetal head is with respect to the largest antero-posterior diameter. No. Engagement of the fetal head is with respect to the largest transverse diameter. Here some very important clinical thing is mentioned that in multigravida the head engages in labor, whereas in the primigravida the head engages at 37 to 38 weeks. So you have to remember this. The proper time to do pelvic assessment in primigravida is beta, it is 38 weeks, because here already we mentioned that head engages in primigravida at 37 to 38 weeks. So then only we will do the pelvic assessment after the head has engaged. Okay. सेकेंड लास्ट क्वेश्चन. रॉबर्ट पेल्विस में सिंगल पेल्विक एला एब्सेंट होता है या डबल पेल्विस? हियर अगेन यू कैन सी द सेकेंड वर्ड, जैसे सिंगल सिंगल पेल्विस एल होता है नेगली में, लास्ट में नेगली लिखा हुआ है। वैसे ही रॉबर्ट, सॉरी डबल, डबल पेल्विक में लास्ट में रॉबर्ट BLE लिखा हुआ है, जो कि रॉबर्ट का है। ठीक है, OUB कॉमन है, सो बोथ पेल्विक एला एब्सेंट। नेक्स्ट है ट्राई रेडिएट पेल्विस इज सीन इन, ट्राई रेडिएट पेल्विस इज द रिकेट्स पेल्विस। इज इट क्लियर? एनी क्वेरी you are welcome here to ask. Please, we'll meet you soon tomorrow. Thank you, thanks a lot for joining me. Your all the queries, I'm waiting for your queries. If there is any, do write me. Very good Dr. Prashant, very good Dr. Kavita, very good. Active participation by all of you. Thank you, Dr. Kavita, for joining me. Any other thing you want to understand? Good night. Thank you. Thank you.